Most first-time managers focus too much on managing their teams. And the real shift happens when you realize your job is to manage across the organization. Relationships, strategy, and talent decisions matter as much as day-to-day executions. Hello! Welcome back to Coffee with Minnie. I'm Minnie, an MIT alum, and I have managed teams across countries and industries. Last time, we talked about the inner games of people management, letting go, not taking things personally, and anchoring yourself in your values. If you haven't watched that one, start here. And today, we're going deeper. And here are 3 more tips that will separate managers who get promoted from those who plateau. And none of them is about being the smartest person in the room. Number 4, prioritize relationship building. Remember those senior leaders in your companies who are so good at talking, but don't do and they're not the best examples of good leadership and good managers. But here's the reality. The more senior you become in a corporate, the more people-oriented your role will become. You need to know what other teams are working on, what their priorities are, where they're blocked, so that your team's work actually lands in the right context and gets the right support. Your relationships with senior stakeholders as well as other peer managers will determine your competence in this pillar. Going back to the iceberg model that we talked about last time, now you've got to go out there and use this model and try to understand everything below the surface, not only of your team, but also other peer managers as well as senior leaders in the company. And here are some questions that I ask myself before I go out to my meetings. What is this person's KPI and priorities this year in terms of business goals, team management, and personal development? And to go a level deeper, I'm always in my head asking myself, are they under pressure to hit their target? Are they struggling with team retention or hiring? Are they gunning for a promotion or are they about to take over a bigger org? Knowing all of these contexts and information helps you frame your conversation, your asks, and how your team can potentially add value. What is this person's personality, background, and story? This is how you build genuine rapport based on true curiosity and not just corporate small talk. Did they work at the same company that you did? Are they from the same hometown? Have they lived in the same city? Do they also like traveling, own a dog, or love sports? This is where you ground yourself to find that commonality, which is how you start building the relationship. Finally, how can I add value to their team and themselves directly? This is actually the most important question, but often the hardest before you've spoken to someone. So until you have some answers from the first 2 questions, this one can wait. But always remember, it is very, very important to have value exchange, value add in a professional relationship. So make sure you're always thinking about this. So now, go out there, set up your recurring calls with senior leaders and other functional stakeholders. Make yourself seen and visible to senior management in a way that's substantive and not performative. The more you invest in these relationships, the more open doors you're going to have in the long run for your team. And the 5th lesson, practice strategic thinking and communication. I know, sounds like mega corporate jargon that you want to throw in the garbage. But what it really means boils down to 1, stay on top of the information curve, and 2, have a CEO mindset. Staying on top of the information curve really requires you to read and absorb information more than anyone on your team. And this doesn't necessarily mean more hours, but you gotta be very intentional. Is there a new policy that's being released that is going to block your supply chain? Is there a merger in the industry between your 2 customers that will actually make you lose your contract? Do you see a competitor's move that could essentially change your pricing assumptions? You need to stay on top of all of that as if you were the CEO. Through reading, through talking to internal and external stakeholders, and leveraging the relationships that you build, as we talked about earlier, and make sure you digest and investigate the potential impact. And the CEO mindset really goes back to what we talked about in the previous video. And that is you need to stop thinking about how to execute the day-to-day, but what to execute and why. As an individual contributor, you may do an excellent job in figuring out the best route to go from New York to Boston. As a manager with a CEO mindset, you need to question constantly, is Boston the right destination? And in a real workplace example, the teams and the individual contributors will be figuring out the best go-to-market channel, the best campaigns, what the KPIs are, what's the ROI. But as the manager or the CEO, depending on your level and where you sit in the org, you should really be thinking about, is this the right product for the market that you're looking after? What more resources do you need that can help you sell better? What are the risks that no one's talking about? And again, instead of trying to figure out how to do the work, you think about what resources you need, whether that is headcount, that is tooling, or that is cash to do the job better. And always remember, as a manager, you are no longer making the chess pieces, you are playing the game. Once you're able to stay ahead of the information curve, your next task or challenge is actually to think about how to communicate that effectively in both directions. Or rather, all directions. Your job as a manager is a thought filter, not a megaphone and not a bottleneck. Your key value add is to be able to funnel information effectively in all directions. This requires you to have some discretion as to what to share with your manager and your team at all times. And the general principle that I work with is always communicate what must be known. That is company-wide policies, personnel changes, verified process updates. Always communicate those quickly and transparently. For everything that is essentially optional, I share good news and updates that either have a positive impact on the business or excite people. And I share difficult news if it helps to manage expectations without setting unnecessary panic. What you don't share is as important as what you do. And of course, how you share it depending on how well you understand your team's communication style, which I've talked about in my previous video, so check it out. Final and sixth lesson is hiring, retention, and development. This topic deserves a whole episode, if not a series, on its own, but today I'll give you my preview of my top level takeaway for each of the topic. Hiring. Fit and value are equally important. In the bazillion times that I have personally been rejected for a job, I've heard many times the reason being you're not the right fit, or we found a better fit for the role. And that could be many things from skill sets, background, cultural fit, and just anything that the team needs at the time. So for a candidate, you can check out my earlier video, Good Boss, to learn about figuring out the fit. And this goes both directions. If you're the hiring manager looking for a team, you have very specific things in mind that you're looking for this role and for this person. And a lot of that should be captured in the job description, but the criteria might evolve as you get different candidates, different backgrounds that are presented in front of you. So knowing what will be a good fit for your team is very important. But at the same time, and this one is super underrated, is to hire according to your value. In order to do this, number one, you have to know what your values are, like we talked about in the last episode. And for me personally, I am very open-minded to different personalities, communication styles, ways of working, cultural backgrounds, and all, but I cannot tolerate any early signs of lack of integrity and professionalism at work. That is a tax on the team and on the company, and it compounds over time. And for retention, understand needs and be transparent. Everyone simply has different needs at different stages of their lives, whether professionally or personally. The very effective retention tool that I've found is actually so simple. Just ask the question genuinely, are you happy? And that is a great start. And when my boss asked me that question at work, it really made me reflect on the things that I'm very satisfied with and things that I wanted more of at work. And with the framing of that question, I felt a lot more comfortable to share transparently. And a tip for someone on the other side, you ask that question back to your boss. Are you happy with how I am doing? And of course, corporate America always has its limitations, so you're not going to be able to meet everybody's needs at all times. And this is where transparency really matters. You should be very honest and transparent about what you're willing and can fight for this person and what's out of your control. Try to leave the door open and always communicate and have a conversation. In development, be data-driven and proactive. This one depends on the size of your company, the stage they're in, and how well developed they are in terms of talent development programs. In large companies, big tech, banking, and many companies that I've come across, they have very established company-wide development programs that are HR driven. So that makes your life a little bit easier as a hiring manager because you get guidance on what needs to be done. But if you don't have that context and have not experienced that in your career, it's very important to keep in mind that you want to have a development plan for every individual on your team. And a lot of times, the number one reason for soured manager relationship is actually misalignment in expectations. So as a manager, you should set very clear KPIs and expectations and success metrics for every role on your team and as a team in the beginning of the year. Better in writing, and always have explicit discussions to align your expectations. Not every role is going to have as clear of a metric as something like sales, where revenue is your ultimate goalpost. But quantify where you can and have concrete milestones and goals for every team member will save you lots of headaches down the road. And that is all for today, and wraps up our two-part series and everything that you can't learn in business school, but very, very important in people management as a first-time manager. Always remember, get your inner game and the external game. Letting go of the work and the spotlight to coach your team, not taking things personally so you can really focus on trust building and developing your team, and defining your leadership values to manage your insecurities. Externally, start building those key relationships across the org so that you uplift your team. Practice strategic thinking and communication. Think like a CEO and communicate like a filter. And always learning how to hire effectively, how to retain talent, and how to develop people on your team. I hope this is helpful as you kick off your leadership journey and navigating your career in your 20s. Do leave a comment if you find this useful, if you have any questions, or there's any topic that you want to hear more of. And I hope to see you next time. Bye.